All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Smith. I'm one of the assistant directors for alumni engagement for the University of Toledo Alumni Association. I'd first like to begin by thanking some people for helping with tonight's program. First, I'd like to thank the Cleveland chapter of the University of Toledo Alumni Association, our alumni moderators, John Greco and Allie Clifton, and of course, our guest of honor tonight, Andy Billman. Despite the busy and chaotic nature of everyone's schedule, they all came together to volunteer to make this event happen, and we're very grateful for that. I would also like to thank all of you for attending tonight virtually, as well as all of you watching the recording on demand at toledoalumni.org. As we continue to reach out to our alumni and friends around the world during the COVID pandemic, we have added virtual programming in hopes of providing opportunities for alumni to engage and connect during these challenging times. To ensure the best viewing experience, the only video you should be seeing is those that are the panelists or presenters, as well as those of the hosts and special guests. As a friendly reminder, all participants are currently on mute and the program is being recorded. Please feel free to use the question and answer function to answer the questions throughout the event. That should be located at the bottom corner of your screen. I would now like to turn things over to Tyler Guthrie, who is representing the leadership of the Cleveland chapter of the U Toledo Alumni Association. Tyler, along with Stephanie Guthrie, Brittany Connolly, and chapter president Nicole Beck, have helped lead the Cleveland chapter, which has not only come up with this idea, but also assisted in bringing this idea to life here tonight. The Cleveland chapter of the U Toledo Alumni Association was recently named back-to-back recipients of the U Toledo's Alumni Chapter of the Year Award, both in 2019 and 2020, which is a testament to their success in engaging the U Toledo alumni in the Northeast Ohio area. At this time, I'd like to welcome Tyler Guthrie. Tyler?
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us this evening. I really hope you're excited and enthusiastic for this event, and we're really glad you can join us. Now, I'd like to introduce our guests of honor for the evening, as well as our guest co-hosts and moderators with our discussion with Andy. First co-host is John Greco. John is a Rocket legend who was born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio, where he was a standout at Boardman High School. As a UT Rocket, he was a three-time All-MAC honoree, All-America candidate, and made the watch list for the Rotary Lombardi Award as the nation's best lineman or linebacker. Greco was selected in the third round of the 2008 NFL Draft by the St. Louis Rams and would go on to an 11-year National Football League career, including 6 seasons with the Cleveland Browns. He now serves as an on-air host for the Cleveland Browns radio network, as well as a frequent guest and expert contributor on Cleveland area sports talk radio programs and podcasts. Good evening and welcome, John.
Tyler, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Glad you can join us. Our next guest panelist is Allie Clifton. Allie was born and raised in Van Wert, Ohio, and starred as one of the best women's basketball players in Van Wert High School history. As a UT Rocket, she was a standout player and leader, serving as a team captain during the 2008, 2009, and 2010 seasons. After earning 2 degrees from the University of Toledo, she would spend 6 seasons as a Cleveland Cavaliers sideline reporter for Fox Sports Ohio. Allie currently serves as the Los Angeles Lakers studio host for Spectrum Sportsnet and hosts the popular podcast Road Trippin', which features former Cleveland Cavaliers Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye. At this time, please welcome Allie Clifton.
Tyler, thanks so much for having me along with John. I am ecstatic about tonight.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you both. Appreciate it. And last but not least, the man of the hour for this evening, Andy Billman. Andy is an award-winning producer who has a passion for sports and storytelling. Billman started back at ESPN in 2002 and produces documentaries for ESPN Films. He has worked on SportsCenter, the ESPYs, Playmakers, Tilt, and Dream Job. Since 30 for 30's inception in 2009, he has been with the group working on the Two Escobars, Winning Time, Youngstown Boys, Playing for the Mob, and Bad Boys. Additionally, he's produced other ESPN film projects such as The Announcement, Unguarded, The Book of Manning, and Saturdays in the South, A History of SEC Football. Andy made his ESPN directorial debut with The Stars Are Aligned, part of the SEC Storied Film Series in 2014, before then directing the ESPN 30 for 30 Believeland in 2016. Besides his work for ESPN, Andy has also teamed up with Jared Watson to create and co-host the podcast of Cleveland and Beyond with Andy and Jared, which focuses on opinions, analysis, and interviews with regards to Cleveland sports. He also has a second podcast with Holly Wetzel called Set the Edge. Finally, he also appears on a weekly podcast with Coach Urban Meyer, Terry Bradshaw, and writer Buddy Martin called The Best Fridays in Football. Andy is an Elyria, Ohio native and graduate of the University of Toledo, where he loves all things Cleveland.
Jed's 2000 tournament, and I didn't want to embarrass anybody with that knowledge, but I am a great beer pong player, and I heard all this stuff from Allie and John. I just want to make sure that's known. I'm really, really good at that sport. Thank you. And cornhole, if I have a couple beers, cornhole. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Andy, thank you so much. We're glad that you can join us. We have a really great evening on deck for everyone. We're really excited. And at this time, I'm going to turn things over to John and Allie, who will work and kick off the conversation with Andy. Thank you, Saul.
Thanks so much, Tyler. Thanks so much, Paul. I will just jump in right here because, John, I don't know about you, but should we team up and try and really take Andy to task with that beer pong?
Allie.
He just pointed out there.
I felt a challenge coming on just in the tone of his voice. So we're going to have to pick a neutral location where we can all kind of put this to bed, see what happens.
We're going to figure out how to do it virtually, since I feel like we'll be doing virtual events for the years to come. But nonetheless, exactly. Before we dive into this evening, I just want to say thank you to Tyler, thank you to Paul for inviting me to be a part of this. If there's one thing my parents taught me at a very young age, it was that you should never forget where you came from. And being from small town Vanderbilt, Ohio, moving on to the University of Toledo, beginning my broadcasting career in Cleveland, it is forever near and dear to my heart to be part of events like this. I know I share that with John as well. His love for Ohio, it just speaks volume, and it is why we are here tonight. And we are excited about what's to come. So, John, should we just jump right into it?
Yeah, I think so. I would just echo everything you said. You know, growing up in Northeast Ohio and having the opportunity and the privilege to play for the Cleveland Browns, this documentary, Believeland in particular, is very near and dear to my heart. And growing up a fan, and my dad and uncles and grandfathers and grandmothers and everybody in my family, I can live through them watching this documentary, knowing the pain and suffering through some of the parts, and then the triumphs and some of the parts too. So it was a very exciting, and I told Andy that I had to kind of rewatch it just to get it fresh in my mind yesterday. And what an exciting documentary, and I'm happy to be here.
No doubt. So for all of those that are joining us virtually tonight to dive into this documentary, Andy, let's do it. I am so excited to hear all about these stories. So let's just begin very broad because I think many people, if they haven't heard already, probably want to know the inspiration that came for you in terms of creating this documentary, Believeland.
Well, when you sit in a room and you're coming from Toledo, Ohio to Bristol, Connecticut, it's quite a shock. And one of my first experiences I came to ESPN right out of college, 2002. I was lucky enough to get a job right out of school. So when I sat down and you sit in a room with people and, they go around and like, what school did you go to? And you're like, someone goes, Columbia, Seton Hall, Syracuse, It's like, I went, to mess with people. I'm like, UT. Like, oh, Texas. I'm like, nope, not Texas. They're like, Tennessee. I'm like, nope, not Tennessee. Go to University of Toledo. And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, who's your sports team? I'm like, the Cleveland. Yeah, I love the Cleveland Browns Indians. And they're like, we're so sorry. I'm like, sorry. Like, I'm proud of this. Like, I'm very honored to be a Cleveland fan. So my experience very quickly was like, is that the perception of Cleveland, Ohio? Is like, we're sad and we're just down, Debbie Downer. So I'll be honest with you, my first real hours at ESPN, I was like, wait a minute, like there's a lot of cool things about Cleveland. I learned very quickly. I guess maybe I lived in Ohio bubble. I thought Cleveland and Ohio was just great. Toledo too. Like I thought it was just great. I loved it. So when I moved to the East Coast, and you get that, it's Connecticut, but New Yorker edge, where it's only an hour and a half down the road. So you get that New York edge. It's like, whoa, wow, you don't think highly of Cleveland at all. You don't. Why would you? This would be the big Barry Sachs, great man. Why would you cheer for them, Billman? Like, well, I don't. I think they're. I mean, I love the Browns. Like, I don't. Would you ever change? I'm like, no. And then you get all these different questions. So to be honest, from day one, I was like, I need to explain to people why this is the way it is. And I won't lie, it really kind of started from that moment. And then when 30 for 30 started cooking, and I started getting my skis and learning how this whole thing works, that's a whole different story too. But when it got to the point of 14, I started getting confident. I was directing. So then I started pitching around the idea, and it just kind of just took off from there. And I knew, like what John's saying, and Allie, we've been talking about these different stories. I think we all have moments sitting around the family and talking. So when my dad and I have two brothers, before every Indians game, we'd go to a bar or restaurant, sit and talk sports. That's what we did. And by the way, I grew up too, like my dad went to Purdue, so I'm a huge Purdue fan. So we'd sit down, and before a Purdue game, we'd sit and talk like, hey, what's this? What's this? What's that? And honestly, at Toledo, what would we do? We'd sit at Jed's and talk before the game. Or, you would go to that, whatever the bar is called up in the student union, and you'd go there, and then you'd stumble to Glass Bowl and go, all right, let's watch the game. So I was trying to bring back memories to me, because sports is obviously a big part of my life. So I wanted to give to people, like, there's a lot of tie-ins here. And I really thought, and I still believe, obviously being born in Cleveland, I think Cleveland's very special. And I think sports as a sports like everywhere in the country, sports is important. Don't get me wrong. I just think it's a unique edge in Cleveland. So that's how it all started.
Okay. So the first thing that comes to my mind is when you share the element of people wanting to apologize for where you're from, and then the teams that you're rooting for. Goodbye. But with that said, you then want to step into a space where you could create a film, a documentary, if you will, that will reach so many, and that there's so much that can be said through this story that you're about to tell. Did you have challenges of, I guess, if you will, persuading your bosses to allow you to bring this film to fruition? Was it hard? Was it easy? Was it an easy sell? What was that like?
That's a great question. You asked the best question.
Oh, thanks.
So you really do, because I was going to go down this road. So when I took the gig, there were some things that came into it. The budget for this film was very messed up. So I got half the money I was supposed to get for the film. So they already gave me a challenge. But from my experience, I'm like, okay, I can get through this, and I really want to do this film. I was warned by a person who's very, very high up, and she grabbed me and she goes, Andy, I don't think you should do this. I think this is going to ruin your career. I just don't think this is very smart. I just don't think anybody's going to watch this. I go, really? She goes, yeah. She goes, I just care about you, and I really just want you to know, I don't know why anybody would watch this. So I was warned, like, this is going to be the end of your career. Like, you're taking something and you're just going to, like, no one's going to ever watch. Like, everyone, I won't lie, everyone did. And there's like a couple people who believe in me, of course, but there's like a lot of people like, no. Like, no one cares. And once it aired, and once we did that tour, it was amazing. I mean, Allie probably and John, we all go through this where people are like, we knew it. We knew you were going to be. It's like, man, where the hell have you been the last 2 or 3 years? I've been in a hole. I'm sitting here questioning myself. So for out of all the projects I've done a lot, and I'm lucky to do all of them. I definitely had some supporters. I won't lie. It's a great question. I had a lot of doubters. And on top of it, people kept saying, why will people watch this? Why will people? I got asked all the way up until air. Prominent directors. I was at an Emmy Award show, and this person, won't say his name, came up to me and goes, I just don't think anybody's going to care about this. I just don't think anybody's going to ever watch it. And it was one of those, like, being in Cleveland, Ohio, North, you learn humble pie is the best thing for people to serve. And it was great when the rewards are coming in. And it was so rewarding, and the reaction, and still to this day, For sports DVDs, sports things sold out of Amazon. In the top 100, obviously OJ's number one. Number two for ESPN is Believeland. Number two. Wow. And I tell people to this day, that proved everything. It's all about a story. If you have this, as for everybody out there listening, if you have a good story and you believe in it and you put the hard work in and you have the team, you can do it. It's true in sports. It's true in filmmaking. You have it and you have the team, you can do it. You'll always have naysayers. Don't listen. Just keep believing in yourself. It was a fulfilling project, but it was an absolute grind. It was a constant grind. I knew there were some people around me who were watching it who didn't really believe it.
Speaking of, John, I want to kick it over to you, but really quick, thank you and congrats to you with all of that has come since, because like I said, I needed it. I needed to watch everything that came before my time to better understand the teams that I root for, the history, and then, of course, just even up to Game 7 in the moments that I was not able to be a part of in Cleveland, having been with the team. So congrats and kudos to you, John. You got it.
Oh, thank you.
And that was excellent advice that you shared at the end. And what a terrific story. And I'm just excited listening to these answers to these questions. I feel like it's like a whole separate documentary. But kind of the question, really that I have. So as you're watching, I lived through some of the experiences throughout the documentary. Certain people were alive at certain times in the show, and other people, may not have cared about the Indians or may not have been into the Browns, but they may have just been huge Cavs fans. And so everybody was kind of influenced and affected different ways throughout watching this. But if you were to just give, one message for people that have watched Believeland to walk away from, what would that be? And then just to kind of segue into this next part, does that message differ from some of the other 30 for 30s that you've worked on?
Okay. Good question too. So the biggest thing I would say in something like this is, again, when I came into Connecticut, I did not realize the perception of Cleveland. And what I had to learn reteaching myself is Cleveland had been through some hard times. And there's actually a bigger meaning to sports. I mean, you and Allie are both athletes, so there's a game and then there's the game where there's things that are happening that really interact with society. I'm a big believer in this. I think in Cleveland especially, sports plays a big impact of how the community feels and really how things are going. It's not ironic what's going on with the Browns, and the city's feeling vibrant right now, to be honest with you. It's not ironic when I was growing up in high school, the city of Cleveland was jumping in 95 because the Indians took off. And I just believe in that energy in life. When you're in Toledo and it's cold, but you know that there's a good football team, you skipped a class. I mean, I was lucky enough during my era where Gary Pinkel was the coach, and that team was good every year. And it was fun on Saturdays. And you go to the Glass Bowl, and it was cool. When we were talking about this, you would see big teams, big names. Roethlisberger, Miami, Ohio. You saw things, and it was huge. It brings a different energy. You feel proud. And even let's put it to a Toledo spin. When you have that, like I saw a game my freshman year, Toledo men's basketball. They beat Scooney Penn and Ohio State. That team went on to go to the Final Four at Ohio State. When you have wins like that, it just sparks the crowd. It sparks your energy. You feel proud. I go to Toledo. Yeah. When Toledo beat Penn State in 2001, it was 2000, we all won. I remember we were all like, oh my God, Chester Taylor, Tom Amstutz, we all woo! So it's that kind of energy. And I think that's what I try to drive through there. It's like in Cleveland, everybody can go off where they want to. And I'm kind of tangenting here for a second, but bring it back to it. I always tell people this. New York and Chicago and LA drive ratings, always in the top 3. It can be anything. Cleveland always hits. That's why the Cleveland storylines are on the top things at ESPN.com. Why it gets clicks. We have energy. We love that stuff. We love clicking on it. And throughout all 30 for 30s, to your second question, you always try to find a bigger story. So for the Two Escobars, it was a much bigger story about not just soccer and Pablo Escobar, but how those two intertwined and how that really told the story, what happened there to poor Escobar as he was shot and killed in the streets of Colombia. In the case of the Bad Boys, it wasn't just a championship team led by Isaiah Thomas. They were in my opinion, even though I was not a Piston fan, they changed basketball in that period. And they brought an edge. I mean, my gosh, in that film, I think you felt that. And even in something like Youngstown Boys, why maybe that was a bigger story than just Ohio State winning a championship? What was the real big meaning there? So whenever if you find a good story and you have a great story, we'll find and weave it and make it good. That's the bigger thing. And I think that goes with filmmaking and life, in my opinion.
Thanks for that. And, you talked about Youngstown Boys. Growing up, in high school, I played against Maurice Claret. And, he was kind of a national name, and he was very popular. And especially when he went to Ohio State, everybody, all of a sudden, his name was on the map. And it was fun to watch that and kind of have that story, because I played against him, kind of be brought to light and shared with other people. So that was exciting. And thanks for that. Getting back to Believeland, as watching it, there's some big personalities, famous Cleveland personalities related to sports. So players, analysts, people in TV, radio, news. So it was fun to see a lot of familiar faces and kind of hear their perspective going through that. If you could give me a couple, or maybe there's the biggest one, or share a few of moments from some of the personalities from the documentary that maybe surprised you or just outright shocked you.
Gosh, that's a great question too. I would say, like, the one thing that I was always really surprised with people is how, there was obviously a couple examples with players who loved the game, loved the city, but didn't have a bigger connection. They felt like they played, they'd either swing the bat, shoot the hoop, and then they go home. Most people, though, felt the interconnection. What I was blown away by, for even people who weren't in the film, is how people always came back to Cleveland, how people always had a home there, how people are like, we didn't put him in there a ton, but like Craig Elo loves Cleveland. He really, really identifies with that. And that was not a positive moment. And I was really, really stunned by Craig. In fact, if I had the choice, I would have done a lot more with Craig, but executives had some decisions to make in the film too. So we did some different things. That's how it works in life. But, Craig was a shocking one because I didn't know what to expect. And that wasn't an easy interview because I kind of knew what we're going into. He was the softest, gentlest man. We ended up playing like Chinese checkers and sitting there and just talking. And I came downstairs to Craig Elo's basement and, a very nice house, beautiful home. And what do I see? The posterizing moment of Jordan shooting the hoop in over him. And I'm like, why is that hung up on your wall? He goes, well, I've accepted it. It's part of who I am. I'm proud of this. Like MJ and I say, I'm like, this is insane. Like that to me says Cleveland. Like he accepts that moment. It's like, this is part of me. It's who I am. I would also say too, Scott Rabb was, I was introduced to Scott pretty quickly, and his passion was tremendous. And once I got to know his son and him, I kind of envisioned, this is where I come in, and this is what I remember growing up. So that, to be fair, like he played a big role. I used to call him and be like, what do you think of this? What do you think? I'm sitting here in the other room doing this. You just want to bounce someone off's ideas. And then lastly, probably is Ernest Biner. Ernest really was not nervous. He had never spoken about the fumble publicly. So he had turned us down quite a bit. And we had to really, really coerce him to come. He goes, well, I'm only going to give you 30 minutes, Andy. Or he kept calling me Adam. He couldn't remember my name. He goes, Adam, I'm only going to give you 30 minutes. Okay, that's fine. So we got him there, and he goes, Andy, Adam, I only got 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, Ernest, I got it. We had him for over 2 hours. We made him late for a Browns backers function. And I remember to this day, like you just remember things like that. And he really opened up, and he was crying, and he was cathartic. And afterwards we hugged. And from that moment on, and Ernest and I talk once a month. We always talk and text and catch up. That was not only a film moment, I had made a friend. And that's not in our business. That doesn't happen sometimes a lot. It did there. And he's such a good man. And that's life-changing, let alone film-changing. So that moment there was stunning. And it was great. He trusted me so much to open up. And I'll give a little more slide one. Marty Schottenheimer, too. I hope Marty's doing well. I know he's been battling some health issues. Marty was tremendous. And for people who don't know, look it up. Marty in my era was I loved all these people. I love Hargrove too. Grover's great. Marty meant a lot to me growing up in the 80s. I loved Marty. I loved his energy and his passion. That was another guy. Good dude. Asked me throughout, are you okay, son? How's everything going? Like just good man. And those are the things that really make this thing go in the world.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, John, and then you went there with it, because when I watched this documentary, there's two parts. First of all, when you talk about Scott and Judah and the way in which you approached, Andy, this documentary to tell it from a father-son kind of connection, and then you see that the Cavs won their championship on Father's Day. You know, it just kind of gives you the chills. And it's like the special aspect of watching these things really come together as a viewer. And I could only imagine what it's like in your chair, in your seat. But the other moment of this documentary that I will weep like a little baby is how raw and real Earnest Byner was. And so my question, because for those that are tuned in right now and joining us and listening to us, this is probably my favorite part when we all came together just 15 minutes prior and you guys shared this moment. So John, please jump in too as well with Andy. But for you, Andy, to sit there and to know that he only wanted to give you 30 minutes at the time, that he turned you down several times before, for him to open up in your position as you're thinking about how this is all going to come together, what was your reaction in that moment?
Pardon my French, but I'm going to just say the way I said it. Like Ernest left and we had this thing. I go, we got the fucking film. And I went to turn the cameraman. I'm like, we fucking got it. Like there's times where you just have to say something. You're like, oh my God, like that just happened. Like you're on, I mean, obviously I'm not athletic, but I was on cloud 9. Like that was my moment. Like I had won, like that I had conquered. I love playing poker. I just won the World Series of Poker bracelet. Like I put it on. And in my case too, because I am a huge fan and the fumble impacted me a lot as a fan, it actually brought back memories of me watching the game with my family and my brothers and my dad. And it brought back to me a lot of things. And I had one of those moments where I don't remember how that night went, but I kept thinking, eating dinner at the West End in Cleveland, was like, I can't believe this is happening the way it's happening. I kept talking to my dad. I was calling my mom. I just kept wanting to talk and talk and talk. So I was bringing up all these memories. And I mean, when you're sitting there doing it, obviously watching film, you guys are giving me your reaction, which is great. That's my job. Doing it live, it brought up the same reactions to me because I kept saying, like, you know, it totally changed my perspective. If I'm being fair, growing up in the 80s, my favorite player was Bernie Kosar. He was our guy. Bernie's going to take us to the Super Bowl. It was Bernie Kosar. Michael Dean Perry was another guy I loved in the 90s. He was tough. He's rough. Clay Matthews in his hair running around. Love Clay. Clay should make the Hall of Fame, by the way. He should make the Hall of Fame. I'm going to give that plug in real quick. I love Clay. But from that day, and it's funny, my son asked me this the other day. He goes, who's your favorite player, Dad? Mike, Ernest Byner. No doubt. And then John Greco. But Ernest Byner's number one.
Yeah.
Ernest Byner's number one.
Yes.
John Greco, too. In fact, my John Greco jersey's hanging up somewhere. But I mean,
I appreciate that.
You got it. You need to autograph it, John. Send it to me, FedEx. But no, I love Byner, and he represents everything from Cleveland. We wouldn't, for people who forgot, didn't watch that game, we were getting, as Browns, we were getting our ass handed to us. The game was over. LA was throwing darts. It's in Mile High, that annoying stadium. Everything's going bad. I'm a 9-year-old kid weeping. And then Kosar, bam. But it wasn't just Kosar. Byner took off. He had such an amazing game. And we could never have been there in that position without him. In fact, the play before, he almost caught the game-winning touchdown, but Bernie just threw it. He didn't have, just a couple inches away from his fingertips. So people got to remember in life and sports, you don't get here with some of these players. Byner got you here. And people have to remember that. And even today's game, I'm sure John and Allie can talk about that. You have to remember in moments sometimes, everybody remembers the Bill Buckner or the Byner in this case. And by the way, the other night too in the Dodger game, that poor catcher spun around like a woolly bird. There's a lot more to that. You know, anyway, that poor guy. Thank God the Dodgers won. But that kind of thing, we talked about that in Cleveland Beyond. You should listen. But the big thing is, like, in that kind of situation, Byner got us there. And Byner and Mac were wonderful. And so that's why it will always be forever, Ernest Byner. He is the man. He represents Cleveland because we all know how to get off the mat, shake it off. And Cleveland fans are tough, but they're fair and they love you. And that's the best thing I think about Cleveland.
Was that a moment that defined you as a sports fan, Cleveland sports fan?
Yeah, I mean, when
was your moment?
When I was 8, I was living at the time in my dad was a salesman, so we traveled around the country. We worked for American Greetings, shock. So we did all these different tours around the world, and we lived in a brief 2 or 3 year thing in Roanoke, Virginia. So in Virginia was the year of the fumble and drive, and so there wasn't a ton of it was Redskin country. So I was now football club. but Washington was the football team. So we were there and doing our thing. And I will never forget, the drive was shocking. I remember it's like, wow, that was weird. Wow, that was really weird. And then but you're like, okay, Allie, that was not supposed to happen with the year of the fumble. That was our time to win that game and get it back, to take it back to those nasty Broncos and win that game. So when you lose that game, you start losing sense of life. Like that, this is not how the play's supposed to play. How did that, you just lose your mind? And I've told the story publicly, so I'll tell it here too. When the fumble happened, my dad had a moment where he threw a pillow in the TV and he got the TV stuck with the volume in the channels. And so on older school TVs, this is probably light years between people like, what do you mean? You used to have to change the channel with your finger. So the channel got stuck and it started changing the channels rapidly. And my mom's like, Tom, you broke the TV. So all this stuff happening and my dad's like, I can't believe he fumbled. That could not have happened. So as a child, it was all those moments. I'm like, is this how sports goes? And by the way, shortly after that was a shot. So it was one of those moments where you're just like, is this what it's about? But as you learn, you're there every year and you do cheer harder and harder and harder.
You still show back up.
Oh yeah. We cheered for Baker after that Steeler game. We were there. We were right there. We were right there. We cheered even after 0-5. We were there. We were ready to go, Baker. So that's the things you kind of remember as a Cleveland fan.
That's awesome. John, you got it.
So, given the success that Believeland had, their fans growing up in the area, really Browns and, Cavs, Indians, there's fans all over the world that support these Cleveland teams. Is there any kind of greatest story never told about Cleveland sports teams? And if something comes to your mind, maybe you can, kind of reflect on it. And do you think there's ever a chance that a future film could be made out of it?
Oh my God, John Greco. I am getting your jersey. So I just announced a week ago about a film about Cleveland, and it's called War on the Diamond. And it's about the history and between me of a moment that I learned through making Believeland. And I'll tee it up. It's a rivalry between the Yankees and Indians, but it's about a bigger story about the player Ray Chapman in 1920. Ray Chapman was the best player. Trez Speaker, for the Clevelanders out there, Trez Speaker is really the name it's known, and Trez is a Hall of Famer, so it should be known as that. But the real star player in the 1920 Indians team was this guy Ray Chapman, and Chapman was an up and coming star and a starlet in Cleveland. He had married this woman named Kathleen Daly, and Daly was a big name. They were oil people, so they kind of became the socialites of Cleveland. And at that time, Ray in 1919. They just missed winning the pennant. That was the famous year of the Black Sox scandal. So the White Sox won. And then that whole thing happened. And the next year he was debating about playing again. But he ended up playing and the whole reason behind that is his father-in-law was going to give him a big position in the town of Cleveland. He was going to become Mr. Cleveland. Like, he's a good-looking man, got the wife. He was going to become he was going to represent the city in a way because the Dalys were that big time. And so he plays the 1920 season. The Indians have a great run. It's the Indians, the Yankees, who just get this Babe Ruth guy, and then the White Sox again. And in 1920, on August 16th, they play in Polo Grounds, and Ray Chapman comes up to bat. The Indians have a game or 2-game lead over the Yankees and White Sox, and Ray Chapman gets hit by a pitch by a pitcher named Carl Mays. He dies, and he's the only player ever in professional sports to die in a game. He gets hit by a head with a baseball. Never saw it coming, and his son shocked. Babe Ruth was quoted and saying in the New York Times, it sounded like a metal pipe being banged when the ball hit off his head. And so I did some more research and some more digging, and I started looking into it. And what I found is the Indians and Yankees, I know it's everything Yankees, Red Sox, vomit. Well, let's talk about the real rivalry to me. The Indians actually, with this tragedy, city was stunned, obviously. It was a very, very sad moment. And Ray Chapman is going to be a big part of this film. But that was how the Yankees-Indians started. Because the Indians won the pennant and won the World Series in 20. They outplayed Babe Ruth and the Yankees. No one remembers that. And there's many other moments as we can recall. In the 40s and 48 with Feller, they outplayed the Yankees again with Joel DiMaggio, not in 48. That was Feller. The Indians won. In the 54, the Yankees won 100-plus games. Indians won. They won the pennant. some annoying Mays guy made a catch, but who cares? We almost did that in Believeland. Who cares? We'll talk about that too. But throughout it was 47 to 58. In an 11-year span, only 2 teams went to the World Series from the AL. The Yankees or the Indians. That was it. They dominated. In the 90s, it was the same thing. From 95 to 2001, only 2 teams went to the World Series. The Yankees or the Indians. And we remember those wild series where Sandy Alomar hits that home run over the great Mariano in a great moment. And then in 98, since I don't know the Yankees got back that year. But and then we go throughout this whole history. And then there's this whole thing too with Steinbrenner. And we're going to get into that in the film. Steinbrenner, for people who don't know, actually was born in Lorraine. He wanted to buy his hometown Indians in 71, was blocked by the local man Stouffer. So we're going to get into the whole lineage of why there is this big Yankees-Indians thing and why we have these polls, as we had a poll a month ago. Who do you hate more, Steelers, Michigan, or Yankees? So we get into all that stuff of why that.
Sorry, really quick.
What's up?
What were the results of the poll?
That's a great question. I know the Steelers won, so Steelers week. So probably the Steelers. And by the way, they should win. They should win.
Yeah,
Don't ever have a yellow towel unless it's gold for Toledo. Everything else, or Purdue. But everything else, no. But anyways, going back, never yellow towel. Never. No, right, John? No yellow.
Yeah, absolutely.
No yellow.
Disgusting.
Yeah, vomit. I tell Terry all the time in that podcast. No. But anyways, a big thing that about this film I'm trying to explain to people is why there's such a rivalry there. And why also, unlike the Red Sox, who, yes, of course, in 04, that's the only time they beat the Yankees in a big spot. The Indians, time after time after time, were on the level of the Yankees. So, yeah, so there's your answer. War on the Diamond. We just announced it last week. Serendipitous timing. Not timed on purpose, by the way. And I was lucky enough to meet a Hollywood producer named Art Haran who's believing in me and putting money in me and direct it. So it's going to be fun.
Well, that's exciting to hear because watching Believeland, it almost seems like I was like, I want more. You know, you cover the 3 sports, and it's like you can make an entire film about each team. So that's exciting and refreshing to hear that the fans can have something to expect. Allie, I have another one real quick, and it's kind of one that I always get. But, you know, you come from Elyria. What was really one thing that drew you to the University of Toledo? And, you know, what are some advice that you can give someone that would be considering going to the University of Toledo?
First of all, Toledo, I have a phrase. It's Toledo cool. Toledo is actually a cool town. Whenever I'd have friends, I was born in Elyria, Cleveland. As I said, my dad's a salesman. We ended up actually settling in Columbus, Ohio. So I did my latter years there. And obviously you're right beside Ohio State. But I didn't ever, when I did the job, what's it called? College tours. I don't even know if they do that anymore. Obviously not during the pandemic, but they have like these, you know, whatever they're called, right? Those college.
The campus tours.
Yeah. So we walked around, and like I knew I did this high school show. I knew I was doing sports television. I knew it. So I was like, all right, so where am I going to go? You always hear about OU. So like I was like, well, I would like to know more about the other schools. And Toledo in 1997 was the only school that offered the Collegian, the newspaper, radio, and television for kids. So that was it. Like, I forget why, but OU was not up to speed yet on TV. So I went to Toledo, and I went up there and visited, and I fell in love with it immediately. I felt like it's my kind of town. I won't, as you can probably tell, even though I work in the white collar world, I love blue collar. I love the potpourri of life. Toledo is a potpourri of life. You definitely get all those different and I love that. I'm a big believer in that. And so I fell in love with the campus immediately. And honestly, for people out there, Toledo is a great school. I know it gets known as a commuter school, which is sometimes a fair label. I will also say, though, really, really nice, down-to-earth people that work hard and really give you a direction. And it's not small. And I wanted that. I don't like small things. I like things that feel bigger and hustle and bustle. And the thing about Toledo I loved, you're obviously 45 minutes from Detroit, but you're not that far from Chicago. You're only like you're only an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Cleveland, and you're only 2 hours away going past Van Wert, going to Columbus. So like, yeah, you see, I got that in there. So like, yeah, so like you were always center press. And by the way, if you're a freshman, you're only 45 minutes away from Windsor, Canada. So you have all sorts of fun options to go to. That's what I really, really liked. We all did that. Come on, that bridge. Yeah, it's fun. You get your passport or the book and go to Peppers, have all sorts of fun. But I love Toledo for that stuff. And the biggest thing is the people. Everyone was so nice. I went to Michigan. A little weird. I went to Ohio State. I knew Ohio State, and I went to a couple other schools. I never felt the warmth like I did at Toledo. I love the people. Still this day. In fact, my brother, who's now a principal out in Denver, he also went to Toledo, and we both talk about it all the time. We had a lot of options, but Toledo always felt like home to me. That's how I would say it. Toledo felt like home, and you can drive your career there. I mean, I think I'm a testament. I think everyone is here. You can drive your career through Toledo. You really can.
That in itself is a built-in segue. So well done. It's like you've done this before. Because there's one thing I will say before we bring Tyler back in, because we do have some questions coming in from those that are listening, and also some other attending questions that were sent in for you, Andy.
Okay.
But just one final point before we bring Tyler in, because it's kind of the saying that I'll forever say it because I believe in it, and I think we all probably share in this because we are Ohio born and raised.
Yep.
Nothing is given, everything is earned.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that for me, I learned a lot at the University of Toledo. It's a part of who I am, and as an athlete there, it taught me what it takes to get to the next level, what hard work really means. And so with that said, as you are as successful in the film industry as you are, coming from Ohio, coming from not Texas, not Tennessee, but the University of Toledo, how tough is it? How tough is it? And how much has that played a role in who you are and where you are at this point?
I did that on purpose, but you're right. When you're sitting in a room full of people, and by the way, it's I'm right down the road from Yale. So like you see a lot of people coming in and out of your life, and and by the way, those are great schools, nothing against them. But what you kind of learn in that moment is I'm a big believer in diversity and potpourri. I think that's how you make the best things in life. So whenever I am with a crew, I always look for like, well, who's going to be different minded? So when I did Believeland, I hired non-Clevelanders on purpose because I needed them to tell me to rein it in. I need people to tell me, you need people to push and tug you. I'm a big believer in, Allie, what is best for the product? What is best for your film? What is best for the team? What is best for the engineering department, right? And I think Toledo is about that. Like we all work together, and Cleveland's really like that. It's all about like, what is best for the team? We love you, Baker, but if you're not playing well, we're going to remind you of that. But when you do play well, we're going to praise you and support you there too. And I'm sure John's got examples. And Allie, you're playing basketball. We all have examples of that. I think that's a specialness that can bring you. And also, I think too, reminds you at any moment stuff can happen and you got to be able there to help and support. There's too many times people get bent down. They get like Ernest. Let's just bring up Ernest as a good example. Ernest needed to be loved and really, hey, we could not have been there without you. And that was not the moment. And he came back to Cleveland, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that went down that wasn't fair to him. And he even got treated by some of his teammates who weren't really fair after that game, right? I've learned in my industry, especially when you do something great, it's like saving the game in the World Series. Everybody loves you, everybody wants you, and you get praised. But it's like, well, there's a lot of people here that also help me along the way. Like I'm not just to be fair. Like I directed it, but Jeff Riley edited it. Brian DeStilio was an excellent producer. I couldn't have composed it without the composer. I couldn't have done things. John Dahl believed in me. Thank God for John Dahl. He gave me the opportunity. Like there's other people there you got to always recognize. So recognizing the team, and Toledo always felt like that. Like, yes, I graduated with a 3.2. I couldn't have gotten it without my mom. I couldn't have done this without my brothers supporting me. I couldn't have done certain things. So I think all those things really play a big role, Allie, and like recognizing things. And I would just say this to everybody out there who's still a student. There's going to be highs and lows. Finding that touch of gray medium is very important. Don't get too high and don't get too low. It's never as low as high as you think. It's usually right in the middle. Have that closer mentality. If you blow the save, you're going to get the ball the next day. You better get ready to save it the next day. That's the way I always tell people. I'm like, you got to be ready to have that ball in your hand because you're going to be asked to close the game and you got to close it. And that's all that matters in that moment. And when you do close the game, don't be cocky the next night. You could blow it. So you gotta be ready to go. That's what life's about. And that's certainly what's about in the film industry. You got to be ready to go, and you can't get too high or too low.
It's that humble pie we all love to taste.
Yes. Yes.
I have no idea.
Doesn't always taste good, but yes, humble pie.
Exactly. They always say time flies when you're having fun. It is flying right now. There are some questions that are coming in. There are some questions that have been sent in already. So, John and Kate, unless you have something else before we move on, if there's anything we left out, if there's anything kind of on your mind.
There is, but I think we don't have like 3 or 4 more hours. So I think we got everything that the meat and potatoes of everything. Like I said, I could talk to Andy about this all night. It's been a great experience so far, but I think a lot of the attendees have some excellent questions. So let's give them a chance to get some questions answered.
I agree. You want to kick us off then? No pun intended. That was really good.
Yeah, that was good. So, I'll read from this list right here. And Andy, yes. I don't know who this is from. It seems like they're all anonymous, but
sure.
This person says, I'd love to hear the story of Believeland from pre-production to post and distribution.
Okay. Well, pre-production, I came in, I found out the budget was cut in half. I thankfully had done some things through another film that kind of banked some things. And by the way, I work for Disney and ESPN, so it isn't like I'm a foreigner. So like I'm negotiating with my own company, which is a whole nother thing. For people who are students, that's crazy. That's where you really start drinking a lot of coffee and pour Baileys in the morning. It helps. But all that to be said, the biggest things like with that kind of stuff, pre-production, you just got to get organized. Really, organization pre-production is everything. Because once you start, it's hard stopping. Like I'm sure you can attest to. Like once the game starts, John, the game has started. You make adjustments at halftime, so I can make adjustments in the edit room, or I can make adjustments after the game. But when I'm in the field, you got to go. It's very, very hard with the cameraman. That's expensive. That's time. That's money. You got to have a plan, be able to execute, and all that. So pre-production, I would tell everybody, rehearse. There's no such thing as over-prepared. Be over-prepared because you never know when someone's late or when it rains. In our field, it's amazing. I'm sure Allie can attest to that. It's amazing when someone doesn't show up, how that can domino into 40 million problems. And then for post-production, the biggest thing is staying calm. There's a lot of things you can't control. Oh my gosh, I can post these another day. The executive producer is changing things in my film. And my producer's mad at me, and now my editor's mad at me because there's a lot of people at times who get dominoed at the end. So my biggest thing I tell people is you just got to keep communicating and keep as you're directing, you become a coach at the end. You're actually in the game until the end. And at the end, you got to be like, you got this, Jeff. You got this, Brian. You got this, Michael. Like, you just got to keep reminding people, we got this, because there's things you can't control. If someone at Disney who loves the film goes, Andy, I think you need to take this out, that's going to change 30 seconds of timing. I don't care. All right, so fine. So we got to take that out. So that affects the music. That affects the editing. That affects things. My producer's trying to do a budget book. He's like, well, now we're changing shots. It affects everything. You got to stay patient. You got to really stay. The game's not over. I mean, that's really the thing I would say. And distribution, I guess here's the way I'd take it. You can't change how an audience feels. It's like the stock market. When you buy stocks and it goes down like it did on Wednesday, you can't change that. You got to go with the stock market. Same with an audience. The audience will tell you what they're thinking about. But what you can do is get out there and do social media promotion and all that kind of stuff to help get your word out. The biggest thing is students out there watching it, your self-PR promotion is everything. I would start doing it now. If you're wondering what you could be doing late night in a dorm, yes, building, technology, knowledge, all that stuff's important. If you have time to build an Instagram account, I would do it. It's worth every nickel someday. And I'm learning that. So I just had to buy something like that today. It wasn't cheap. And then the thing is, like, those are the kind of things that can really go well. So market, PR, and believe in yourself would be my thing about distribution. That will help distribution. But once it's out, it's out. You can't control what the audience is going to feel.
Really quick, I want to take that one step further, because from the post-production, when it comes to Believeland, I want to know the process really quick, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. You guys aired that a month before the Cavs even won the championship.
Yeah.
So was there a thought that you already knew you were adding some things at the end because you had the faith and the belief that they were going to get it done a month later? Or what was that process like? And then getting it all together and then redistributing it, if you will.
To tell you how much of a no that was, I went on Chris Mad Dog Russo for game 3 or 4, I can't remember. And we had no plans. I was out there doing DVD sales. I did like an autograph tour. I was in Cleveland. I was at Harry Buffalo's with Chris Russo. God, that was a magic moment in my little career. I mean, now that I'm based in New York, if people don't know Mike and the Mad Dog, I produced that film too. I love those guys. So to be on the show is just amazing. So no, we didn't. It wasn't until game 5. Because I started getting asked to go on all these radio shows. And then I started going on television shows. And I was getting mocked. I get the feeling that moment where the kick happened, and I can't remember his name now, the guy from Michigan State, plays for the Warriors. Yes. When that moment happened, you could feel the series change. And I go, don't let the Cavs win game 5. They're not losing game 6. They're not losing game 6. And then from there, my boss started believing in John Dahl. Goes, I think you're right. He's from North Carolina. So he goes, I think you're right. So like we started huddling around. It was game 5, and I called Rab. I go, Scott, if the Cavs win game 6, I'm going to Cleveland in game 7. And Scott goes, well, I'm not going with you. I'm going to game 6, and I'm tired. I'm like, no, you have to. So then, for people forget, that was the famous Steph Curry mouth throw. Oh my gosh, banana scene. God, it was such a great game. And so everything went crazy. And so I was calling Rab. I'm like, you got to come back, because I'm not coming back. So I told the executives of ESPN, I'm like, we're going to have to pay for him to come back. And we're going to have to give him obviously good treatment and everything else. And Scott calls me and goes, no, we're doing this the Cleveland way. We're going to drive from New Jersey to Cleveland. I'll see you there on Sunday. They come on fumes to Cleveland, Ohio. I get there Saturday, and the rest is history. So no, it wasn't until game 4, because I could feel that series turn. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. I could feel it turn. It happens in sports. You can't put your finger on it, but sometimes it just happens. And that's one of those moments. So I would not say for me until game 4. And then once they won in Oakland in 5, I was like, I don't know. It was my one rare moment as a Cleveland cocky fan. I'm like, we're going to win game 6.
Cleveland cocky fan.
Doubt we're winning game 6. And we did.
And the rest is history. And then you got Believeland.
Yeah. And ta-da! It was just that easy.
I wondered, because I totally forgot that it came out a month before. Mm-hmm. And then obviously to see how it unfolded and now is what it is. That's pretty epic. That's awesome. Tyler, there is a question down here that is a lot like the one that was submitted. Do you want to touch on that? I think that's a great question.
Sure. Yeah. I know how you guys talked about being gritty and, people from Ohio or the Midwest are your meat and potatoes kind of people. Mm-hmm. Andy, is there any chance of a Mid-American Conference or Toledo docu with all of our football players that have had success in the NFL, or even all of our, players from the MAC conference that have gone on professionally, whether that be football, basketball, baseball, anybody? That would be right up John's alley.
Well, I was going to say, we have a guy right here, and we have Allie right here too. There's actually, when I was in school, there's always stories that are coming in and out there. The answer is yes. The biggest thing that I found with this is what is the bigger story that we can tell, right? So here's what I would say. It's again, Toledo cool. I would just say the unique thing about Toledo is there's a lot of people have touched here that people don't forget. Nick Saban coached at Toledo and took us to the Vegas Bowl. So when Bama scores, Toledo scores. Just remember that. Every time Bama scores, that's Toledo scoring point. Don't even worry. And also the Browns scored too, because he was a D coordinator in the 90s, and he was a hell of a D coordinator. But there was a lot of people that go through Toledo. I think Toledo has got such a great spin. There needs to be a doc done that's bigger than that, almost like the school plays a part of it, but the city. I worked at a restaurant that's no longer there called Dominic's. Dominic's was a big Italian restaurant in town, and it was right beside the theater hall down there. I forget the street name now, but anyways, and all these people come from the concert would go to Dominic's. And Dominic's was this bolsterous place, Italian. They had Jamie Farrell pictures everywhere, but they had all these famous people. And Toledo is not known, but Toledo's a city. Big people go through there a lot. And the thing is, they have a wonderful medical program. engineering program. There's a lot of history tied to Toledo. And so what I would say is, again, Toledo cool. And I think we need to do something bigger on that city. I've heard this a lot in the last 48 hours when talking to people like Paul and Tyler and Allie and John, where like we all kind of go through our memories. And there's so many good memories. I don't really have bad. That's the thing. Like I've met people who went to much bigger schools who I'm lucky to in my career. They didn't really enjoy where they came from. I'm not just saying this. I love Toledo. That's why I'm doing this. I loved it. I wish I could get back there more. Yeah, I had such a great time. I love Nettie's. I love going to Jed's. I love that stuff. I like rocking and rolling, eating Tony Paco's, going to Mommy Chop House. Like that was it. It was so much fun. And it was affordable. Oh my God, is it affordable? Biggest shock of my life is going to Connecticut, where I moved from a 3-bedroom apartment with a young lady and a guy. We had the spacious 2-bedroom, just spacious. And I lived in a box. In fact, I lived in a Motel 6. I was so broke, because I wasn't making enough money at ESPN to start off. It is a culture shock, so it's affordable. And I just think that's the bigger story. Toledo is cool. It's such a great town. Underrated restaurants, just a great, great place. And a very affordable, fun town.
John, I'll kick it over to you for the next question, but I will say I might be biased, and John probably might be too, but I met my spouse there at Toledo. I obviously played there. I agree with you. I love Toledo. Every time we go back, from LA back to Ohio, we always stop in Toledo.
Oh, yeah.
Every single time. I still have some of my greatest friends are there, my college teammates. It's a special place. I can't say enough about it.
No,
I would agree. I met my wife there, and my uncle was a math professor there for 40 years. And, every time I get a chance to go back, it just kind of renews a part of me that made me who I am today. So I will always go back, and every time I talk to my friends or teammates or people that have gone through there, we laugh, we share memories and stories. And anytime I get a chance to kind of nudge someone in the direction of Toledo over maybe Bowling Green or somewhere else, I always do that. So I'm with you guys. But getting back to kind of Cleveland things, something that I'm curious about too, reading this attendee question, is there a single best, Andy, in-person Cleveland sports experience that you could share? In person. Well, there's a couple. I was actually at a game. This one, the Indians did not win, but this encapsulates Cleveland. Every year, I wish I had the photo with me. My mom sent it to me the other day again. There's a great photo of me in 88, 89. I think it's 89, where we all, 92 too. Okay, I got two quick ones. 89, the Indians. This is right before Major League comes out. And all the time, we go to these games, and the Indians would get the crap kicked out of them. It was awful. We went to the game where we saw the Bash brothers, McGuire's, Canseco, Ricky Henderson. Tony La Russa just took the job of the White Sox. Bleh. But like all that stuff, it was such a fun game. But what was great was we'd go to those games in Municipal, and they got blown out. Bob Welsh threw like a 2-hitter. But what was fun is my mom and her friends brought in hot dogs. Like we all sat around and like we just all like kind of palled. And so then 3 years later, in 92, we went to my dad and my two brothers and I went to the last series with the Baltimore Orioles. And back then in Municipal, you could bring whatever you wanted to. So we drove up, we parked, we got there. Mark Whitten, for people to remember, was late, and he parked right beside us. And my dad directed traffic for him to come into Municipal and pull like right into the spot. And it was crazy. And Mark Wynn comes out and goes, "Thanks, man. Go drive." Like, go drive. Like, go to the game. By the way, that would never happen today for Progressive Field. But it was crazy. And those are the memories I remember. And then we went to the game. My dad brought a mini television he hooked on a battery. And we were watching Florida State, Miami, wide right 2. So we sat and watched the game on a cooler. We had all these like different things, and the Indians are getting there, they're losing bad. And the usher comes down and he goes, "What's the score of the game?" Like, it's like 8-3 Baltimore. He goes, "No, Florida State." I'm like, "Oh my God, you won't believe it. Miami won again on a missed kick." And that's Cleveland. That is Cleveland right there. The Indians are losing and you wouldn't even know it. You were just enjoying life in Municipal. That's Cleveland right there.
To a T.
Yes. For Toledo, yes.
I love that.
Wrapping around, like saying his business, right? Full circle. Book into that thing. Boom.
That's awesome. I actually see this one that's coming in from Frank as well, Tyler. And it kind of ties into it, what you were just talking about, kind of.
Yeah. So speaking of Tribe, how were you in Cleveland for the World Series? And then, what were your thoughts on Game 7?
It's a long story. I'm a chatterbox clearly, so I make it quick. The answer is, if the Indians were winning, we were preparing, because I'm a freelancer now. I own my own film company, but I was still a Disney employee, and I was going to do another Believeland thing if the Indians won. And so there was another film I was producing at the time called Catholics versus Convicts, the rivalry between Miami and Notre Dame. And I was in South Bend on that Friday. They won game 4. Or is it the game 3? They won game 3. And then we went to the Miami Notre Dame game the next day. And then on Saturday night, I was watching the game at the South Bend, some bar. By the way, people haven't been, Notre Dame's a great place. Go watch a game there. Cool stuff. So we were watching the ball. Kipnis goes off. Oh my gosh, they're going to win. So I knew Rizzo was there and Hammer from WKNR. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go to the game. I almost paid $1,000 for 2 tickets. I should have never done that. That was really expensive. But I did. I went. So I went to game 5, and oh my gosh, Jose Ramirez hits a home run. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be sitting here watching the Indians win a World Series. And I started getting texts from bosses like, what are you going to do if they win? I'm like, well, I've been drinking beer all day watching the game, so I can't do anything because I can barely breathe. This is the Indians are about winning the World Series, which, as you can tell by my hat, I am a diehard fan, clearly. So that whole thing happened. And then when they lost, so I'll tell you sort of quickly, I was sitting beside some Cubs fan who was so annoying throughout the game. He didn't let me clap. So he gave me a stare. So at the end of the game, I sat on my hands. I was a good guy. Didn't want to get him mad. So of course, the Cubs win. And way out, he slaps my head on the back of it. He goes, how about that, Cleveland? And I remember looking at him like, I will never, ever, like Sandlot, cheer for the Cubs again. May you lose and may you rot in hell. Go Cubs, go! Stupid song. So then I went back. I went to game 2 and game 5. Trevor Bauer lost both. But in game 7, I was in Connecticut, back in Cheshire, and I was sitting there like every Indians fan. Couldn't believe what was going on, and that was an amazing game. I don't remember who won, but Rajay Davis, I remember that. By the way, Rajay Davis right down the road here. He lives in Branford, Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, inside tip there.
There you go. Yeah, always trying to bring an insider.
So you were gonna just add that on to the Believeland, that ending, or you were gonna create one in its own? It
was crazy. It was going in those directions where I actually said, I think we need to do a whole separate film. This is a much larger thing. Yeah. This is 78 years. Now it's, we don't want to even say the years now. But at that point, it's 78 years. It's like, we got to do a whole thing. Because the Indians are, every fan special. The Indians fans are special too. And I want to do a bigger thing. But because people kept saying, how are you going to change the ending? I'm like, you can't change the ending again. So I think we're just going to do a part 2 or 3. It was one of those moments I knew what I had ahead of me. And I kept saying, I'm like, just get to that. Just get to the parade. You'll get the camera crew there. We'll drink a bunch of coffee and we'll just figure this shit out. And that's what we'll do. That was like the whole plan. And then I could just tell. I don't know why. I hate saying this. I never had a good feeling after game 5 with that old man. that whole way back to Connecticut. I was like, that was no good.
Well, we have, I don't want to wrap this up. We have a couple minutes left.
Sure.
And I want to, John, if you have another question to get in here, please, because then I just want to end on what is going on in your world lately. What's next? What's the podcast like, et cetera. So, John, let's throw out another one, if you will.
Yeah. So, I'm looking at the list. This could be quick. Do you think LeBron will ever come back to Cleveland to play?
Well, let me see if I got him on my cell phone. Do I think LeBron will ever come back? Probably not. I probably not. Look, I said this on the PBS NewsHour 2016. I'll say it again. What he did in 16 is great. He is forever Cleveland. Period. End of sentence. I will say this because we're all part of this. John and Allie can probably attest. I mean, I love Cleveland. I love Ohio. I live in Connecticut because I have to for my job. Like sometimes in life, your job takes you different places and whatever. I'm that unique fan. I respect and love LeBron being in LA. I love LeBron. I am a huge, huge fan of his. He changed my career. I never even met the man. But like, he's just one of those things where like, I just think he's done so much goodwill. Do I ever think he's going to come back to the Cavs? I sadly don't. But that's not because he wouldn't want to come back, in my opinion. I can't speak for him, but that's just my guess. It's a much different thing. And to be fair, the Cavs are going through a much different cycle. So that's that.
I actually thought, John, you were going to throw out the favorite classes, places on campus, but you really pressed for a little one there.
Yeah, I was looking at the list, and that was my next one. I had that one highlighted because I'm sure that, there were some common themes there, but I think we have another minute. Why don't you answer that one?
All right. So there was that Subway in the student union that didn't taste like Subway. There was like China Panda or something. We all got lost at Taco Bell at some point in our life, way too late at night. And you're like, what are we eating? Just eat it. Just eat it. More sour cream, sir. Just like, whatever it is, just put it in your mouth. Arby's. I mean, we all go through that international house, eat the cafeteria at some point. You gotta do that. I love Jed's. I'm sure I mentioned that a lot of times. I did. I used to go there every Tuesday night for wings. Always a fun spot. Always met fun people there. There's an old bar, I don't even know if it's there anymore, called Jack's, which was right beside campus. Jack's was great. Jack's was always dangerous because that was like the next day of like, who do I need to apologize to? Okay, I'm sorry. I was happy. So like all that. And that used to be a BW3s right there. I don't think it's a BW3s anymore. So when I was in college, Doug Wicker and I, and I forget the other gentleman's name, but Doug Wicker and I, Doug, if you're watching there, hey buddy, need to talk. I haven't talked to you in a while. But we'd go there and we'd go to BW3s from noon to 6 to watch college football. And then the Rockets always in the late 90s, early 2000s always played at night. So then I would go back to campus, would watch the Rocket game, take a nap, and then, might stay up and, way too late. But it was great. And that was my experience there. And there was a great bar that I know is no longer there called Arnie's. And Ernie's was the sports bar. To give people the depiction, it's too bad that place. For people who've seen Casino, that was real life in Toledo, Ohio. Where you go into this room where there's way too many televisions. And even though you couldn't, there's smoke. And you'd see Doug Wicker and I would go there way too many times. Loved it. They had $1 beers there on Saturday. It was crazy. So we'd go there, we'd sit there and watch college football all day. And then Wicker, for some reason, there was always random fans from different colleges. And so, because Wicker's a high state guy, goes, give that round of Gators a round of milk. Like, he would say like a weird thing. So, but throughout the day, there was this dude we became friendly with who totally looked like that De Niro, like two big glasses, like soprano, like junior soprano glasses, like race papers. And towards the end, like, hey, Andy. I'm like, hey, Tony. Like, good to see you. He goes, you ever want to make a bet? I'm like, absolutely not. Nope. Like, I will sit here and watch your games. Those are my favorite spots. The distillery was great, too. And then
sorry, really quick. This will tell me everything I need to know about you. Chasers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. If you had a date, you get the Chasers. That was like, there was Chasers. What was that other? There was always a bar where I always went on dates with. It was in downtown, and that was like the one time you had to wear nice pants or something. Like I didn't have nice shirts. Like I was t-shirt dude. So and I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta really you'd actually have to dress up and stuff. And it was in downtown. That's all I remember what it's called. But Chaser, oh my God, Chasers. Oh gosh, that was some memory for the off color Q&A. But yeah.
Exactly. After dark.
Yes.
I feel like if you hadn't been to Chasers, you hadn't lived in Toledo.
No, agreed. And there's also Mancino's Sub Shop. I love Mancino's Sub. Fantastic subs. I miss their subs. They're some of the best subs I still have had this day. Wonderful.
You know what else was wonderful? You. You're wonderful. Hour plus spent was awesome. I'm so glad to be a part of it. You're awesome. I really had time. We toss it over to Paul. John, is there anything that you have to say?
No, thank you. This has been a blast. And like I said, I think, we all kind of feel that we could have continued this for a couple more hours. I really enjoyed everything that you shared. And, I'm going to be watching your future work and projects. And so far, so good. And keep up the great work. And thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Nice meeting you, John. Thank you, buddy.
Which, speaking of right there, where can people find you, Andy? You got your podcast? Yes,
go to AJ Bill. I'll do my Twitter handle, AJBill79. I'm doing stuff for Cleveland and Beyond, Jared Watson, Holly Wetzel. And then there's these two unknown names, Urban Meyer and Terry Bradshaw. We do a podcast called Best Fridays in Football. Connect with Buddy Martin. In fact, after we're done, I'm taping my segment where I pick games and usually get them wrong. And then they laugh at me for being a Cleveland Browns fan, but that's okay. So check all that out. It's Best Fridays in Football, evergreen podcasting. And finally, War on the Diamond, coming hopefully a year from now. And then I'm also producing 2 or 3 things for a director named Fritz Mitchell. And they're going to be on Auburn football. And the other one's going to be on LSU for this little guy named Joe Burrow, which will come out next year. Little guy knows Joe Burrow. Does that sound familiar? Maybe?
No big deal. Andy, you're amazing. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you to all of you who joined us and listened. I hope you enjoyed the time as much as we did. We had a blast rehashing so many memories, TOL, CLE. There's a reason why we're all connected. So, Paul.
Thank you, Allie. There's always someone that has to, end things. And unfortunately, that's going to be me tonight. Big thank you. If this were an actual in-person event, we would, everyone stand up and clap and give you. So virtually everyone standing up and clapping and laughing and, maybe raising a glass or two to all the good job that all of you guys did. We are very appreciative of everyone that took time. This is not a great time for everyone that's here. As you can tell, everyone's busy, especially Allie, John, Andy. So we're very thankful for them for taking time out of their busy schedules to be here today. We're also thankful to everyone that tuned in today, all of you that attended, all of you that are going to watch this after tonight. We were very grateful for that. Maybe you got through some buffering, you got through the email and password. And of course, as Cleveland fans, you keep believing and cheering for Cleveland and get through that heartache. Through all that great hope that we have as Cleveland fans, and of course, as UT Rockets as well. So once again, thank you to Allie, thank you to John, and of course, thank you to Andy for taking time to be with us here tonight and rehashing all of that. We probably could do this for hours, so we're grateful for at least the time you did give us. A few quick housekeeping things, for everyone that's here. Before we go, if you had friends that couldn't attend tonight, like I said, this is being recorded. So I'll make sure I send out a link to everyone that was here tonight, as well as everyone maybe that couldn't attend as well. Also, I will point out that the Cleveland Alumni Chapter, which put this together, they do have a scholarship fund. If anyone's interested in supporting students in Northeast Ohio, just let us know. Once again, I'll be sending out some information after the program. Be sure to let me know if you have any interest in donating. Last but not least, this is also sponsored by the University of Toledo Alumni Association. So if you're not a member and you want to join, we can help you with that. We recently launched a nationwide, it's called Perk Spot benefits program. In most cases, most people that have started to use this program, they've saved more than enough more than what they would have spent on their membership back and benefits. But lastly, a friendly reminder that the UT Rockets open their football season next week against a school called Bowling Green State University, which you may have heard of. It's going to be on ESPNU. So on that note, I want to wish everyone a good night. Obviously, go Tribe, go Browns, go Cavs, and of course, go Rockets, beat BG. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Paul.